Hello. Sorry I'm late, guys. What a morning. It's been a crazy morning. So I won't be going live on Facebook for AA today. I don't want to deal with that. So thank you guys for being here. Sorry I'm late. I had physical therapy this morning and a doctor's appointment. And your husband got sick, so I had to go pick him up, and now we're back home. Okay, y'all. Welcome. This is an AA meeting, so please do not be judging each other in the comments or the chat. And just because somebody is here in the chat does not mean that they are the alcoholic. So just be mindful and don't be judging each other. And we'll get on with the meeting. So I'm Sandra. I'm an alcoholic. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. I do also put in the description what book we're reading, the page, the name of the story. And if you have a different edition than I do, it's not going to be on the same page more than likely. That's why I put in the name. But if you don't have a book, it's all right. I'm going to read it anyway. And Freedom from Bondage. This is the one that my sponsor always says that is where you learn when to not nag somebody about quitting alcohol. But sometimes it's hard to actually pay attention to it. I think I'm right anyways. I might be wrong, but we're going to read it. Freedom from Bondage. Young when she joined this AA believes her serious drinking was the result of even deeper defects. She here tells how she was set free. The mental twist that led up to my drinking began many years before I ever took a drink. For I am one of those whose history proves conclusively that my drinking was a symptom of a deeper trouble. Through my effort to get down to causes and conditions, I stand convinced that my emotional illness has been present from my earliest recollection. I never did react normally to any emotional situation. The medical profession would probably tell me I was conditioned from or for alcoholism by the things that happened to me in my childhood, and I am sure they would be right as far as they go. But AA has taught me I am the result of the way I reacted to what happened to me as a child. What is much more important to me, AA has taught me that through this simple program, I may experience a change in this reaction pattern that will indeed allow me to match my calamity with serenity. I am an old child, and when I was 7 years old, my parents separated very abruptly, with no explanation at all. I was taken from my home in Florida to my grandparents' home in the Midwest. My mother went to a nearby city to go to work, and my father, being an alcoholic, simply went. My grandparents were strangers to me, and I remember being lonely, terrified, and hurt. In time, I concluded that the reason I was hurt was because I loved my parents, and I concluded, too, that if I never allowed myself to love anybody or anything, I could never be hurt again. It became second nature for me to move myself from anything or anybody I found myself growing fond of. I grew up believing that one had to be totally self sufficient for one another, or one never dared to depend on another human being. I thought that life was a pretty but simple thing. You simply made a plan for your life based upon what you wanted, and then you needed only the courage to go after it. In my late teens, I became aware of emotions I'd not counted on: restlessness, anxiety, fear, and insecurity. The only kind of security I knew anything about at that time was material security, and I decided that all these intruders would vanish immediately if I only had a lot of money. The solution seemed very simple. With cold calculation, I set about to marry a fortune, and I did. The only thing this changed, however, was my surroundings, and it was soon apparent that I could have the same uncomfortable emotions with an unlimited checking account that I could on a working girl's salary. There is something wrong with my philosophy, and I certainly couldn't say, maybe there is something wrong with me. It was not difficult to convince myself that my unhappiness was the fault of the man I had married, and I divorced him at the end of a year. I was married and divorced again before I was 23 years old, this time to a prominent band leader, a man whom many women wanted. I thought this would give me ego strength, make me feel wanted and secure, and all evident alleviate my fears. But again, nothing changed inside me. The only importance in all of this lies in the fact that at 23, I was just as sick as I was at 33. When I came into AA, but at the time, I apparently had no place to go because I had no drinking problem. Had I been able to explain to the psychiatrist the feelings of fertility, loneliness, and lack of purpose that had come with my deep sense of personal failure at this second divorce, I seriously doubted that the good doctor could have convinced me that my basic problem was a spiritual hunger. But has shown me this was the truth. After I had been able to turn to the church at that time, I'm sure that could not have convinced me my sickness was within myself, nor could they have shown me that the need for self-analysis that AA has shown me is vital if I am to survive. So I have no place to go, or so it seemed to me. I wasn't afraid of anything or anybody after I learned about drinking. It seemed right for me to right from the beginning, that with liquor I could always retire to my little private world where nobody could get at me. Little private. Sorry, I already read that part. It seemed only fitting that when I did finally fall in love, it was with an alcoholic. And for the next 10 years, I progressed as rapidly as is humanly possible. If what I believed to be hopeless alcoholism. During this time, our country was at war. My husband was soon in uniform and among the first to go overseas. My reaction to this was identical in many ways, many aspects, to my reaction to my parents leaving me when I was 7. Apparently, I got grown physically at the customary rate of speed, and I had acquired an average amount of intellectual training in the intervening intervening years, but there had been no emotional maturity at all. Good to see you here. I realized that this phase of my development had been arrested by my obsession with self and my egocentricity. I don't know how to say that. Had reached such proportions that adjusting to anything outside my personal control was impossible for me. I was immersed in self-pity and resentment, and the only people who would support this attitude or who I felt understood me at all were the people I met in bars and the ones who drank as I did. It became more and more necessary to escape from myself. For my remorse and shame and humiliation when I was sober were almost unbearable. The only way existence was possible was through rationalizing every sober moment and drinking myself into complete oblivion as often as I could. My husband eventually returned, but it was not long until we realized we could not continue our marriage. By this time, I was pa- such a past master at kidding myself that I had convinced myself I had sat out a war and waited for this man to come home. And as my resentment and self pity grew, so did my alcoholic problem. The last 3 years of my drinking, I drank on my job. The amount of willpower exercised to control my drinking during working hours diverted into a constructive channel would have made me president. And the thing that made the willpower possible was the knowledge that as soon as my day was finished, I could drink myself into oblivion inside, though. I was scared to death, for I knew that the time was coming and it couldn't be too remote when I would be unable to hold that job. Maybe I would be able to hold any job, or wouldn't be able to hold any job. Or maybe, and this was my greatest fear, I wouldn't care whether I had a job or not. I knew it didn't make any difference where I started. The inevitable end would be Skid Row. The only reality I was able to face had been forced upon me by its very precipitation, repetition. I had to drink, and I didn't know there was anything in the world that could be done about it. About this time, I met a man who had 3 motherless children, and it seemed that might be a solution to my problem. I'd never had a child, and this had been a satisfactory excuse many times for my drinking. It seemed logical to me that if I married this man and took the responsibility of these children, that they would keep me sober. So I married again. This caused a comment from one of my AA friends. When I told my story after coming into the program, that I had always been a cinch for the program, for I had always been interested in mankind. I was just taking them one man at a time. The children kept me sober for darn near 3 weeks, and then I went on. Please God, my last drug. I've heard it said many times in AA. There is just one good drunk in every alcoholic's life, and that's the one that brings us into AA. And I believed it. I was drunk for 60 days around the clock, and it was my intention, literally, to drink myself to death. I went to jail for a second time during this period for being drunk in an automobile. I was the only person I'd ever known personally who had ever been in jail, and I guess it was most significant that the second time was less humiliating than the first had been. Finally, in desperation, my family appealed to a doctor for advice, and he suggested AA. The people who came knew immediately I was in no condition to absorb anything of the program. I was put in a sanitarium to be defogged so that I could make a sober decision about this myself. It was here that I realized for the first time that as a participating alcoholic, I had no rights. Society can do anything it chooses to do with me when I'm drunk, and I can't lift a finger to stop it, for I forfeit my rights through the simple expedient of becoming a menace to myself and to the people around me. With deep shame came the knowledge that I had lived with no sense of social obligations, nor had I known the meaning of moral responsibility to my fellow men. I attended my first AA meeting 8 years ago, and it is with deep gratitude that I'm able to say I've not had a drink since that time, and that I take no sedation or narcotics, for this program is to me one of complete sobriety. I no longer need to escape reality. One of the truly great things AA has taught me is grim is that reality too has two sides. I had only known the grim side before the program, but now I had a chance to learn about the pleasant side as well. The AA member who sponsored me told me in the beginning that I would not only find a way to live without having a drink, but that I would find a way to live without wanting a drink. If I would do these simple things, they said, if you want to know how this program works, take the first word of your question. The H is for honesty. The O is for open-mindedness. And the W is for willingness. These our big book calls the essentials of recovery. They suggest that I study the AA book and try to take the 12 steps according to the explanation in the book, for it was their opinion that the application of these principles in our daily lives will get us sober and keep us sober. I believe this, and I believe believe too that it is equally impossible to participate these principles or practice these principles to the best of our ability a day at a time and still drink, for I don't think the two things are compatible. I had no problem admitting I was powerless over alcohol, and I certainly agreed that my life had become unmanageable. I had only to reflect on the contrast between the plans I made so many years ago for my life with what really happened to know I couldn't manage my life drunk or sober. AA taught me that willingness to believe was enough for a beginning. It's been true in my case, nor could I quarrel with restore us to sanity. For my actions, drunk or sober, before AA were not those of a sane person. My desire to be honest with myself made it necessary for me to realize that my thinking was irrational. It had to be, or I could not have justified my erratic behavior as I did. I've been benefited from a dictionary definition I found that reads, Rationalization is giving a social acceptance reason or acceptable reason for socially unacceptable behavior, and socially unacceptable behavior is a form of insanity. AA has been my serenity of purpose and the opportunity to be of service, God, and to the people about me. And I am serene in the infallibility of these principles that provide the fulfillment of my purpose. AA has taught me that I will have peace of mind, exact proportions to the peace of mind I bring into the lives of other people. And it has taught me the true meaning of the admotions. Happy are ye who know these things, and I do them. For the only problem I have now are those I create when I break out in a rash of self-will. I've had many spiritual experiences since I've been in the program, many that I didn't recognize right away, for I'm slow to learn and they take many guises, but one was so outstanding that I like to pass it on whenever I can in the hope that it will help someone else as it has me. As I said earlier, self-pity and resentment were my constant companions, and my inventory began to look like a 30-year diary, for I seemed to have resentment against everybody I had ever known. All but one responded to the treatment suggested in the steps immediately, but this one posed a problem. This resentment was against my mother, and it was 25 years old. I had fanned it, and nurtured it as one might a delicate child, and it had become as much a part of me as my breathing. It had provided me with excuses for my lack of education, my marital failures, personal failures, inadequacy, and of course, my alcoholism. And though I really thought I had been willing to part with it, now I knew I was reluctant to let it go. One morning, however, I realized I had to get rid of it, for my reprieve was running out. And if I didn't get rid of it, I was going to get drunk. And I didn't want to get drunk anymore. In my prayers that morning, I asked God to point out to me some way to be free of the resentment. During the day, a friend of mine brought me some magazine to take to a hospital group I was interested in. I looked through them. A banner across one featured an article for a prominent clergyman in which I caught the word resentment. He said, in effect, if you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or the thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you will be free. Even when you don't really want it for them, and your prayers are only words, and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyway. Do it every day for 2 weeks, and you will find you have come to mean it and to want it for them. And you will realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, you now feel compassionate, understanding, and love. It worked for me then, and it has worked for me many times since. And it will work for me every time I am willing to work it. Sometimes I have to ask first for the willingness, but it always comes. And because it works for me, it will work for all of us. As another great man says, the only real freedom a human being can ever know is doing what you ought to do because you want to do it. This great experience that released me from the bondage of hatred and replaced it with love is really just another affirmation of the truth I know. I get everything I need in Alcoholics Anonymous, and everything I need I get. And when I get what I need, I invariably find that it was just what I wanted all the time. And I know I haven't been on here for an hour. So I was thinking, if you're okay, I will read some of the next one, if you want. But my sponsor always tells me when I'm having that kind of a crappy day to pray for that person. And it works. You might not mean it just like that, like it says, but eventually you get to where you believe it, and that you just redo your thinking of, how somebody made you feel and how it made you mad and all of those things. But that's where we've learned. Take a deep breath, calm down, relax, and think about it, and then say something. Because for me, I just still do this. I get upset and I blow my top. There's a few people that get under my skin. My husband's like, yep. And I have to remind myself that I need to take myself out of that situation and rethink it. And so most of the time when we're getting into an argument, I have learned to just zip my lips and walk away. It's what? Yes. Or I tell them to leave. Even my oldest son, he gets under my skin really easily because he likes to argue, just like his dad. Hi, Desert Adventures. Thank you for coming. When I first got sober, I realized that I had depression and anxiety, and I've been covering those things with alcohol. And mentally, my meds work for the most part on those things, and it's keeping me grounded to where I don't think about those things anymore for a long, long period of time, because it gets on my brain and it like irritates me. And so when I get irritated, it's not good. Or when I'm super stressed about something and I have a one-track mind of, like when we had to put Chubb to sleep. That was my first actual full-on panic attack. And that one was, nobody knew what was wrong with me, and I was up on a mountain. I didn't even know what was wrong with me. I didn't even know anything was going on because I don't remember it. And that's pretty scary. But that trip, I don't know what happened, but I remember the first little bit that we were there. Hi, Ava Potterfield and friends. Thank you for coming and being supportive of my channel. I appreciate you guys so much, more than you guys realize. Without you guys, I wouldn't have had the courage to do these meetings online. So I really do appreciate you guys so much. But I didn't have to go live with my grandparents. My parents didn't drop me off at my grandparents' house. But my birth father and my mom did get divorced when my sister and I were babies. I think we were like a year old, maybe. And so for me, anyways, the flopping from one to the other house and never knowing when our father was going to show up, it was hard on me and my sister because we get excited about having our father come, because as we were growing, we kind of forgot things happened when we were little. But he always drank. And so from growing up with that already embedded into us, we knew that we could become like him. And we didn't do that for quite a while. I drank as a teenager. You guys know that. My parents know that. Everybody knows that. I was an idiot teenager. And I did like how the alcohol made me feel back then when I was a teenager. I just didn't drink it all the time. But I hung out with all the adults. I probably shouldn't have been. Well, it was pretty stupid. Hood surfing on a car, going down the road. I don't think that's very smart anymore. But I did those things, and so knowing that I had that in me to become, I always said, no, I'm not going to become like him. Then, my kids grew up. They were teenagers. They didn't need my help with much. They were mouthy little shits. But they watched me go through that part of my alcoholism, and in a way, I think it was long lasting for them to see me go through that. Because, like, for me, I didn't watch my father go through all of those years of being an alcoholic. Because I lived with my mother. I lived with my mom all my life. And my dad. And my stepdad. And my stepdad drank, but he didn't drink all the time. And, so I knew what alcohol was. And I had been to an AA meeting as a child with mine and my sister's father, and knowing that you have that in your blood, it's enough to scare you for a long time. But for me, when I finally hit that spot in my life, I went downhill pretty fast. It all happened within 5 years. All of my drinking and stuff was all in like 5 years, and it was crazy. bugging the neighbors to give me alcohol, walking down to the store at 7 o'clock in the morning or earlier to get there before anybody else could know that, I've been drinking all day, all night, all day again. I did those binges, and I'd stop for a couple of days and then I'd go back out again. And you would think that I wouldn't have done that, but you can only fight it for so long. And then I found AA, and I'm glad that I did because it's helped me a lot. I've learned how to, if I'm going to be around other people that drink, it's okay to just have an exit plan. And I had to learn also that I can't control anything that's not right here in my hula hoop, which is myself. I can't tell somebody I still have those traits, so that I try to tell my kid, you're making a big mistake and blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't do that, and getting really irritated with them. But, I'm a mom and I don't want my kids to go through that torture part of, relationships and all those things that they're going to deal with. I can't tell them that they can't. I can just be here to pick them up when they fall. And, that doesn't mean money. It means emotionally be there for them when they fall, if they fall. And just be supportive through everything that they go through. And that's what I have to do. And that's all I can do. But AA has taught me so much about myself and about other people, and knowing that I need to give my program to other people and share it loud and proud, that I'm a recovering alcoholic. If you're going to judge me, you're going to judge me anyway. So, I just let it, whatever, and definitely worth every time I've gone to a meeting. And Ryder's over there cuddling with Dad because Dad's sick. Come here, Ryder. Come here. Come. Come see Mom. Come here. Oh, here he is. Say hi. Say hi. I don't need you to clean my ear. Say hi. Hi. One thing I do have to say is thank you, AA. I'm sober and my grandkids will not see me drinking. Nope, they won't. You're such a spoiled dog. Anyways, because I didn't go live on Facebook, I'm going to read the Serenity. I'm going to read the daily reflection. Serenity. The app has been updated. May 26th, turning negative to positive. Oh boy. Our spiritual and emotional growth in AA does not depend so deeply upon success as it does upon our failures and setbacks. If you will bear this in mind, I think that your slip will have the effect of kicking you upstairs instead of down. He is a cutie. Everybody loves him. They're like, oh, he's so cute. He's right here again. In keeping with the pain and adversity which our founders encountered. It's really hard to read with you on my lap. Lay down. Lay down. I never thought I'd have a lap dog, but here I am. I got a lap dog. In keeping with the pain and adversity which our founders encountered and overcame in establishing AA, Bill W. sent us a clear message. A relapse can provide a positive experience towards abstinence and a lifetime of recovery. A relapse brings truth to what we hear repeatedly in meetings. Don't take that first drink. It reinforces the belief in the progressive nature of the disease, and it drives home the need for and beauty of humility in a spiritual program. Simple truths come in complicated ways to me when I become ego-driven. Yeah, I did have a relapse before I ever got to AA. And I can vouch. You don't start over, y'all. You start where you left off, because that's all it takes is that one drink. One. And it doesn't matter what kind of drink it is, because it'll snack you just like that. And I learned that from doing it. And so you don't need that first drink. You just go for today. And that's what we get, is today. Sober today, all righter. Anyways, let's go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you guys for being here. I know I saw Tony here. I see my sister here. I saw Bama here. Thank you guys for all being here and supporting the channel and participating in AA and sharing it out loud, even if you're not the recovering alcoholic. Because as many people as we can reach is the best. It's the best. Yeah. I wobble rider. Say, stay sober, be strong, and if you need the help, don't be afraid to look it up and reach out. They're not going to judge you if you need to go to a meeting, even if it's your first one and you're scared about it. Don't be. They'll accept you no matter what. Right. Yeah. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it, and he's going to sleep. You're welcome, guys. I love you all. Be safe out there. Stay sober. And just remember, you're not alone. There's